Alright, this is part 2 here. So the funny thing about this is the New Horizons spacecraft, which is what flew by Pluto. When they launched it in 2005, it took like 10 years to get there. Going very, very fast. It still took 10 years to get there. Pluto was still considered a planet. Pluto was actually demoted after it was on its way there. But those things happen. So this is Pluto and this is Charon. And these are pictures that the New Horizons spacecraft got as it flew by. So this is Pluto. This is what the surface of Pluto looks like. It's frozen ice, but what's interesting is this ice, a lot of this is nitrogen ice. You know, the air we breathe is mostly nitrogen, 78% nitrogen. Essentially, it's so cold out on Pluto that that nitrogen just freezes to the ground. And so you have a nitrogen ice surface. But there are some interesting regions. There's some lighter and darker regions. And it's more varied and different than we expected. We thought it was going to be fairly uniform. It looks a lot like the moons that we saw around Uranus and Neptune. And I'll show you pictures of them and you'll see that this looks very similar to it. In fact, one theory at one time was that Pluto was an escaped moon from Neptune. Alright, here they are composite together. They were never this close together, but this is made so you can see relative sizes. And you can see this big crack on Charon right across it. That's a crack in the ice. Lots of impact craters. Very similar to what we see with most of the moons in the outer part of the solar system. Alright. And then the other reason Pluto is not a planet is because they found in the last 15, 20 years, they found a whole lot of objects. In fact, we know of several hundred objects that are out beyond Neptune's orbit, what we call trans-Neptunian objects. And Pluto is just one of them. And the one that really changed it was when they found Eris in the early 2000s. They found Eris, I think around 2002, and it's bigger than Pluto. And then they're saying, well, if Pluto's a planet, we'd have to make Eris a planet. And they have moons. These are the moons of Pluto. And then they said, well, but if you make Eris a planet, Pluto's a planet, what about Makemake, Haumea said, all these are close in size. We could go from 9 planets up to like 20 really quick if we started adding all these objects. And these objects, all these objects go in random orbits around the sun. So here's all the planets out to Neptune. Pluto goes like this, the other ones go like this, they all go in weird orbits. None of them lie in that same plane. So from a scientific point of view, it's kind of like when you're sorting apples and oranges. You say, oh, this is a red one, it goes in that bucket. This is an orange one, it goes in this bucket. Same thing here. We say, oh, planets are ones that formed in this spinning disk all in the ecliptic plane. And these objects, we're going to create a new category for them. It just makes sense from a scientific point of view. And these are some of those, and we think there's actually still more out there we haven't discovered. They're still looking for. We're starting to find lots of them. Most of them are getting discovered because our telescopes are getting so good now, we can see these objects. Back in 1930, we didn't know any of those other ones existed. And this has happened before, too. The asteroid belt, when it was first asteroid was discovered, it was called a planet, the largest one. But then they started finding a whole bunch of them in that same orbital region, and they realized, oh, there's a whole lot of them there, and we're not going to call it a planet, we're going to create another category, and that's when the asteroids hit. So that's why Pluto is not a planet anymore. These are just very icy moons out here beyond Neptunian orbit that have wild, crazy orbits. We think they were created when the spinning disk here, when it collapsed in and spun into the planets, there were still clouds of debris out around the edges. That wasn't in part of the disk. That's where these came from. These are leftover ice chunks from that outer region of the disk that never actually spun into the inner part of the solar system. All right, that's it for Pluto.